Welcome to Chapter 4, Part 3, setting up our universal selectors, which includes the font family, font size, box sizing, and also setting up our body selectors with property values. The first thing we're going to do is go to our My First web page. We're going to find the index.html, and we're going to open that or edit it with Notepad++. If we run this, if you remember, we have taken off all of our coding. So as I scroll through, all my coding has been removed. So the first thing we're going to do is learn how to set up CSS. So after our last meta tag, we're going to hit enter twice, and we're going to set up the style tag. We're going to put some spacing in between that. The next thing we need to do is actually identify the type in our style tag. That is going to be type equals quote text slash CSS. So we're actually telling the browser to read the text in CSS coding. So we have done that. And now we're going to set up our universal selector. And the universal selector symbol is the asterisk. And then we're going to put in our curly brackets, hit enter one time or two. And then we're going to type in font family, colon. We're going to type in Arial, comma, serif, semicolon. Remember, all of our property and values need to end with a semicolon. So we have set up our first declaration. Let's add our second declaration. So we're going to set up our font family, and we're going to make this 1 point, I don't know, try 2 EM. We're going to set up our last universal selector, which is our box sizing. And if you're wondering what the box sizing does, box sizing here allows you to include the padding and border in an element's total, width, and height. And so we want to make sure we add in our box sizing, colon, space, border box. So now we have set up 3 universal selectors. You can have more universal selectors. Universal selectors just means that it's going to apply to everything unless you override it with a inline or an internal. So let's go ahead and save this, and we're going to run it. And if we look at it, we're going to see it looks a little bit different than what we had here. I think I'm going to go with 1 EM. I think that's large enough. I think 1.2 is too large. So we're going to run that. Yep, there we go. I think it's a little bit better. I know my image isn't working right yet, but we'll fix that later. So now I have set up my Arial. You notice that this universal selector is overriding my Google Fonts links. Hit enter a couple times, and now we want to set up our body selector. So we're going to type in body, put in our curly brackets, and we're going to set up our margin top. Remember, margins go clockwise, starting with the top. Then we're going to put in our right, because we're going clockwise. Then we'll put in our bottom. Then we'll put in our left. We're going to head and save it. And now when I run this, you're going to notice, I'm going to check out my, you're going to notice that here's my first page and all of the text were like border to border or screen. And then here, if I scroll down, you notice that my margins are now indented. I can also go in here and say text, align, justify, and this will you notice now it's justifying. So versus if I go here, you notice how these are all kind of overlapped or ins and outs. You go in here and you're going to notice they're all lined up left margin to right. So I think that looks a little bit neater, but you're going to have to choose if that you like that or not. All right, so now we want to set up our border for our website. So we're going to type in border and we'll type in 2em. Let's do a solid and we'll make this green. Remember, every declaration ends in a semicolon. So right now we have 6 declarations. I'm going to go ahead and save this and run it. And now you're going to see my text border there. Now, if I think that's too big, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to make this 0.5. Let's see what that looks like. EM. Some people like a big border, some people don't. I think I like that a little bit better. So I'll keep that. Now, if you notice, our text is sitting right on the border. That's kind of a problem. Sometimes it makes that hard to read. So we're going to go in and we're going to add a padding. Now add it to EM. And then I'm going to run it. And what you're going to see is that now my text is moved off the borders. So it looks a little bit nicer, I think. So it's easier to read. If I think that's too much, I can go in here and change this to 1 EM. So you can play around with these numbers. It's largely, numbers are based on what you like. And so now it's a little bit closer to the border, but it's still easy to read. All right. If I'm going to color code this, this green should be more of a color like what's up here in my masthead. But at this point in time, I'm not really going to change that. I'll change that later. But you want to make sure that when you put your border in, it's matching your images and the colors that you've chosen for your website. So we'll get rid of this. So we have put in our universal selector, and now we have added our styling for our body tag. That's it. It's now your turn to go and add these to your first web page. Good luck and have fun.